Tennessee. I was born in West Tennessee. We moved to Middle Tennessee. I went to Springfield High School, played football at Tennessee Tech University, and then after Tennessee Tech, I wanted to get a job in strength and conditioning, and I graduated from Tech in 1986, and I couldn't get a job, so I went back, started my master's, and then I had to pay bills, so I wasn't getting paid enough. I think my stipend was $275 then at Tech, and my rent was $195. So I had to try to get a job, and I worked my butt off. I could not get a job because I wanted to be a strength coach. I knew that I was going to have to coach some other sports, but I wanted to be a strength coach. So I ended up taking a job in New Orleans, Louisiana at a place called John Curtis Christian School. And Coach Decker and I was talking. I got to teach, in fact, one of my former pupils is here today. Vic Valorio will be speaking to y'all later. I was Vic's high school strength coach, but I had, our athletes came to the weight room as an advanced PE, and they were with me, and I was assistant football coach, head wrestling coach. We had a weightlifting team, and I coached track and field, and I didn't know anything about track and field. But what that allowed me to do was to learn. It taught me how to coach, because as a high school coach, it's a little different now, but you know, you're stuck with the people that you get. So if your starting right guard is 5'10", 210 pounds, you have to make sure he's the best 5'10", 210 pound guard he can possibly be. So it's great to be able to talk to you guys today. So now let's talk about our sponsor, okay? And this, I don't have a problem, and no one asked me to say this about Mondo. I was going to say this about Mondo long before I stood here today. So in my time at the University of Miami and at the University or LSU, we built 5 weight rooms, and all 5 of those weight rooms had Mondo flooring in them. And a long time ago, when we started formulating our plan at Miami, well, having just come from Tennessee, Tennessee had a poured orange rubber floor. It was fine. It was made by a company called Martin's. I think that was the name of it. But the floor would tear really easy. So I knew that when I built the weight room floor, I wanted to have a nice, smooth, beautiful, shining weight room floor that we could lift on. But I knew it had to be more durable. So when I got the job at Miami, we started researching flooring products, and I called every company in America and had them send me samples. We glued that floor to the concrete, and we started torturing that floor and testing it. And the flooring product, Mondo Sport Impact, stood out among all the competitors. Now, I left Miami before the new weight room or the addition was completed, okay? But then when I got my job at LSU, I said if we ever build a weight room floor, we're going to use the Mondo product. So the engineers and architects and the athletic directors, they all had an alternate plan. And I said, y'all have to trust me on this. And so what I did is I had Mondo and all the competitors send me flooring products. I glued them down, and I tested them myself with dumbbells, barbells, and 45-pound plates and bumpers. Mondo Sport Impact was by far the best product. And then I did that every time. So we have a brand new weight room in Baton Rouge. I'm not the coach there anymore, but you can call Jake Flint. He'll send you a photo because I glued it down in the air conditioner room where all the big compressors are. I glued all the competitors down. You name whatever flooring product there is today, I glued it down. I tested it myself. Mondo Sport Impact still stood out as the #1 floor. Now, here's my point about this. And it doesn't matter if it's bumpers or barbells or flooring products or dumbbells. Doesn't matter. If you're questioning which product you should buy, get samples and test it yourself. That's part of being a good buyer. And so I challenge you, buy it, test it yourself, and see for yourself. And no offense to Ethan or anyone else, don't listen to what the salesman tells you. Get the product, test it yourself, and you'll find that Mondo Sport Impact is you know, the toughest product out there. And they have other products now. They have all kinds of products that are available today. But the Sport Impact is the one that I always recommend. All right, now, here's what I'm going to do. So that took too long. I've got to talk about 30 plus years in 50 minutes. So we're going to roll. But so Coach Decker and Coach Reeves talked about the people that are speaking here today. It's ridiculous, the people that he pulled together to do this clinic. And it's amazing the amount of knowledge. And you're going to hear some really good stuff. So what I'm going to talk about is the stuff. Now, hopefully I get to some sets and reps and stuff like that. But I want to talk about the stuff that I think helped me in my 34 years of coaching to have the opportunity to stand in front of a group of players every day and teach what I know, okay? So, all right, I call this 4 pillars of coaching. And really, it doesn't matter if you're in the weight room or if you're at the track or you're on the football field. There's certain things that have to take place before you ever run a play in football. Before you ever do a rep of snatch or clean and jerk. There are certain things that you have to do, and it's communication, supervision, programming, and then executing. So those are the things that I want to talk about today. All right? All right, now, the first thing is communication, and if you ever hear me talk, it's one thing that I think is critical. And we've all been around great coaches and extremely knowledgeable people, but they can't break it down in a fashion so that your student athletes can understand what you're talking about. And I think that's important. It doesn't matter how nice and fancy the program looks. If you can't get that across to the reasoning behind what you're doing. And then kids today, and I was blessed. I always had a great group of young men and women that I got to coach, but there's still today, there's so many distractions and there's so many different people pulling on student athletes today than there were when I first started coaching and even toward the end. So you got to get it over. Now, the first thing is coach to coach, all right? Coach Reeves said it yet last night about coaching your coaches. Coach John Stuckey was my supervisor and the head string coach at the University of Tennessee when I got the job. He would always talk about it. Coach Philip Fulmer talked about it. My first boss at John Curtis Christian School, J.T. Curtis, who is one of the winning, depends on what stat you look at, but J.T. Curtis has won over 600 high school football games. I think he beat my son's high school this year, I think, to win his 34th state football championship. He talks about coaching your coaches. You have to coach your coaches. And you have to communicate with your strength and conditioning staff or your football staff daily so that they understand your message. They can't read your mind. Your assistant coaches and those people that are underneath you, they can't read your mind, and you can have the most well thought out plan there is on earth, but unless you're communicating with them clearly and openly, communicating with them everything that you need to get over and through to the athletes. And so we met constantly. We would always meet, and with all the technology that you have available, you know, I would go home with a notebook and a laptop full of data from practice and stuff, you know. Poor Vic, it was Vic's job at one point to get it done, but you have all this information about the team's readiness, and you already have a plan formulated, and then you get in the weight room the next morning after sleeping on it, and you're probably, you know, you're thinking maybe we can go a little heavier on squats than what I thought we were going to, or maybe we should go a little lighter on squats, or maybe those distances in the runs ought to be changed. So we would meet every morning right before we started and talk about what the plan was for today. And then any individuals, if somebody's a little banged up, we would go over that. But it's critical to communicate that message first thing in the morning. And then after that first group, we get together again and talk about the first group and make adjustments for the rest of the groups that day. And then at the end of the day, we would break it down and say, hey, what'd you think about this? What'd you think about that? But coach to coach communication is critical if you're going to be successful. And then coach to player. You know, I was an education major at Tech in health and physical education. Okay, I'm a proud PE teacher, and there was this thing then, and I don't know if they still have it to any of the education majors, but it was called TIM. It was called the Tennessee Instructional Model. That's how I was taught to teach. And in that, one of the first things that they said you had to do was give, you know, the goals and objectives of the day as part of the Tennessee Instructional Model. And that's what I learned to do every day, is you got to stand in front of that team and say, today we're going to do this, 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 and this every day. And that is critical. They have to understand the why of what you're going to do. And kids today ask more questions now. They're so much more wiser because of social media and the internet. They're exposed to so much more, and they're going to ask questions. And sometimes I would say, just don't shut up and don't worry about it. This is what we're going to do. And then later on, I'd break it down and explain it to them. But we started every workout, every day. It didn't matter if they were sixth graders or professional athletes. You got to tell them the how and the why, because they want to know. And the more they know, the more they're going to buy into what you're trying to do. And you know, my boss, J.T. Curtis, said, so my nickname was Bubba. And he said, that's not my real nickname, but that's what they call me. But he would say, Bubba, they don't love you as much as you. You know, they're here to play football. They're here to play basketball. They're here to play baseball. So it's important that you let them know the how and the why you're doing it. All right, player to coach. I learned more from the players that I coached than I did any book, video, clinic, or resource there is. You got to listen to them also. They're going to tell you the things that you don't want to hear, and it's intuitive. They're going to say, Coach, I didn't like that after that practice yesterday, or after what we did yesterday. This right here made me really sore. This made me uncomfortable. Or this, I just didn't like the way I felt from doing that. What we did on Monday affected what I did on Wednesday. So make sure that there are open lines of communication from the players or the athletes to you, and listen to what they say. And go to your assistant coaches and say, what did so-and-so say about what we did yesterday? Or what did so-and-so have to say about what we did today? That is critical information. All right, now, the last thing, coach to staff. All right, and there's other departments that I've left out of here, but especially if you're a collegiate coach, these are big departments. So in our building at LSU, we probably had 200 employees that worked in that building, from the weight room to the equipment room to video to player personnel to player development, the secretaries, administrators, and everybody has to be on the same page, and there's a lot of communication. And like me, like the way our expansion went at LSU, when I first started there, I knew where the light switch was to turn the lights on to the football fields in the early morning. But that building and that facility went through so many renovations and I forgot and didn't even know how to turn the lights on the stadium. So I had to make sure that the equipment guys knew that we had a 5 a.m. punishment run or a 6 o'clock run or something, because if I didn't know where the lights were. Luckily, I had some good interns that knew, but because of all the communication, guys, if you're not dialed in with the academic support staff, the equipment rooms, we all know how important it is to be able to have open lines of communication with sports administration. Of course, the head football coach, you got to meet with him. And, you know, if you know me the slightest bit, I don't do well sitting in a chair in a staff meeting. I'll blow up in one of those things. And so I didn't go to a lot of these staff meetings. So I had to make sure that my communication with the head ball coach and all the assistant coaches were good, because if there was something going on in the weight room, or even not, because I like sitting around talking training with the staff, and I would much rather sit in the weight room and talk training with the staff and coach the guys and sit in some 3-hour staff meeting. So it's important that you're tight with all these people. And now for me, I was over the entire department at LSU. So I even had to deal with the other sport coaches as well to make sure that my young coaches were doing what they were supposed to be doing with all the other sports as well. So critical part right there. All right, the next one. All right, supervision. All right, this is critical. And I'm talking about supervision in the weight room and with your staff, okay? Number one, me, the head football coach and the director of the department, I had to wake up every morning, and with my feet hit the floor, I had to calculate an attitude that I wanted everyone in my department to have, and I had to have that attitude first. If I came in the weight room and my head's down and I'm tired from staying up all night, you know, looking at YouTube or something, that's the way my staff was going to be. If I was excited and enthusiastic and dialed in about my training or our training for that day, then my staff was going to be. And that carries over to the student athletes. I can be one way and my staff be another way, okay? And our message and how the team responds to that message is going to be a little different. So every day, when I walked in there in the morning, the music better be playing, people are rocking and rolling, and we're ready to go. Because my first impression when that team looked at me, I wanted them to say, that old man is ready to go today. And that is critical to me, and to make sure that that gets done every day. Now, the organization. And a lot of this is stacked on top of each other. You know, there's a vertical alignment to it, because we can't be organized and I can't have my staff dialed in if we're not communicating. All right, so that's part of it. All right, but the organization that has to take place in a collegiate or high school setting, with what Coach Decker's got going on here, with all the different classes that are coming through, and the bigger staff that you have. So every time our football team came in there were 12 strength coaches there waiting on that football team to come in. Now, there were myself and 4 other football strength coaches, the baseball strength coach, the beach volleyball strength coach, the swimming and diving strength coach. Like, we cheat. All right, I'm going to stand up and do that. There was no 5 football coaches rule anytime in my life, okay? And I told the administration, remember the communication? I told the administration, I said, that's fine. We'll put 5 guys in there. And then when one of the guys is rolling the bar off to do a set of bench and the bar hits him in the throat, when they question me, I'm going to say the reason there's not a person that was standing there to spot that guy was because you told me they couldn't be in there. That's communication, okay? I take truth serum every morning when I get up, okay? And so when those players came in there were 12 coaches waiting on them. And they would say, you can't do that. And I would do it the next day. There's 12 coaches in there. I rolled the dice every day. I was not going to subject my players, especially with the type of training that we did. It's aggressive. And it was effective. So they let me do what I wanted to do. But to be that well-oiled of a machine, the organization, you got to practice it over and over and over again. And there's probably close to 70 interns that came through our program that are now full-time collegiate or professional strength and conditioning coaches, because we develop those young coaches. So, like for instance, like if I were to get sick, let's say I got sick, okay, my staff had to be, my goal was that I was the most easily replaced coach. If I were to trip and fall and break my leg on the way to the weight room, there were 11 more people that could stand in front of that team and deliver my message and run my program as effectively as I did. And so I found times throughout the year to where I could put my young coaches in a position to do the warm-ups. And I would tell our interns when they came to LSU, you're not shadowing anybody. This is a working internship. You're going to learn to coach, and you're going to learn to stand in front of a collegiate football team and do the warm-up and run the conditioning program and on and on and on. And that's the level of organization that you got to have, and it doesn't matter how small a program is. Everything has to be taken care of, from the setup to the warm-up to the workout to the cool down to the supplements, where we're going to run, who's going to run, what equipment it is, and we go over it and over it and over it again. And in case I can't be there. And case in point, in I don't know what year it was, Vic could probably tell you, but I contracted meningitis. I was there working 1 minute, and the next minute I was in the hospital, coded out. And Vic had to take over the program. And how old were you at the time? You were young. You were in
2006.
Yeah, 2006. So he was young. Yeah, he was young, and he had to take over the program while I was in the hospital recovering from meningitis. And there's a level of confidence when you're organized like that. If my wife called and said one of the boys was sick, you know, and for me, family was always first. And if my the strength coach had trained the offensive lineman, if his wife had a child, you know, I gave myself a mandatory, you had 2 weeks off. You weren't allowed, if your wife had a child, you had a mandatory 2 weeks off where you can't come to the weight room. And there was a guy there waiting, all right, he was one of my assistants. He was the assistant to one of my assistants that took over for the offensive line. So that is the level of organization, and I can't stress, I can give you 10,000 examples right now. Teaching technique. So what we did as part of our organization is we did in-service training at the beginning of every semester. And we would spend, you know, 2 or 3 hours a day. We wouldn't do it all day. We spread it out over the entire week, where we went over every aspect of our program, every aspect of it. Every exercise, not just every exercise that we were going to do that semester, but every exercise that was in our program. We went over, and because we'd always have new interns coming in also, but we would circle up in the weight room. You know, that was during the players' voluntary, discretionary times, and we would spend an entire week going over this, I mean, these slightest little things. How you spot dumbbell bench, where the dumbbells go, how you remove the dumbbells from the rack, did your dumbbell bench, and then how you replace the dumbbells into your rack. The most minute detail was covered in that with our entire staff. And we'll get to it later, but in my department, there can only be one voice, especially in strength and conditioning. In sports like football, if you're a basketball coach and you have 5 basketball coaches, all 5 basketball coaches have to be saying the same thing. And I would tell all of our assistants, I don't care where you came from, all right? And hopefully you become a head strength coach someday. You can teach it any way you want when you're a head strength coach. But while you're here, you're going to do it the LSU way. And so we broke it down and covered everything. I never thought it was fair. Just imagine this. So I'm going to give you 2 perspectives. Imagine you're a football coach, all right? And you're running, and I'm old school, so you're running wing T. Nobody runs wing T anymore. But you're running wing T, all right? And you're talking to your quarterback about the wing T trap, or wing T counter, and you're coaching him up on it. And then when you walk away, the other guy's like, that's a stupid play. We ought to be running. We ought to spread him out 5 wides and throw the ball. That ain't fair. And it's not any more fair for a strength coach. You're coaching a guy on how to perform a power clean. And then when you walk away, somebody says, that ain't how you're going to do it. You can't do that. It's not fair to the athletes, okay? So you got to make sure that you're teaching flawless technique and you cover every aspect of the exercise and everybody's saying it the same way. And then that has to do with the organization and the communication, because that old line coach, let's say, so Lance Barlow is the head strength coach now at Texas Tech University. Got the greatest coaching voice in the world. If Lance is coaching all of our offensive line a particular way, Lance's wife has a child, Lance is out 2 weeks. He was miserable during those 2 weeks too. All right, ladies, I'm sorry, but it happens. All right, and Lance, can I come to work today? No, you can't come. You got to stay at home. But then Blake McCall, who's now the head strength coach at Jacksonville State, Blake takes over as the O-line strength coach. Jake has got to teach it just like Lance taught it. Because it wouldn't be fair when Lance comes back and they're all doing something different. It's not fair. So you got to make sure that you're coaching your butt off on technique. And those athletes, my goal was that when our athletes left, they were as good or better coach than what I was. And I think that's how it's got to be done. And then demand accountability, all right? It was always everything was compulsory to me, okay? There was nothing was an option. And there was no negotiating, really, in the end. It was like my dad said, the only negotiation, son, is there's not going to be any negotiating, all right? And there's a certain way that you got to do it, and you got to demand accountability. And now, my rule was, you can be excused from anything if you call. But if you don't call, it's just an excuse. So, and then that workout, you can miss a workout, coach, I got a flat. Fine, fix the flat. And then tomorrow, you're going to do that workout. All right, but there was a level of accountability, and I'm going to probably misquote it, but our semesterly average for attendance was like 99 point something percent. I mean, and I would excuse guys for anything, but knowing that workout had to be made up, and you develop respect that way by letting them handle their responsibility. Now, I don't know how it is with NIL and stuff like that now, but I would imagine that there's a little bit more stuff going on nowadays than it was. But you got to demand accountability. And if you're organized and you're communicating, then that takes care of itself. All right, now, all right, program. All right, so we're starting to get to the little nuts and bolts here, okay? All right, big believer in introducing your exercises and having a progression that goes from simple to complex. And we are all exposed to so much stuff on a daily basis, and it's all really, really, really good stuff. There's the latest and greatest passed before our eyes every day. Every day. Like Instagram, okay? There's so much on Instagram. There's so much on YouTube. And it's all good stuff. But there's only 24 hours in a day. You can't do it all. All right? And then some of it, you can try some of it, but it's going to be ineffective because you haven't done the basics first. All right? And it begins with, and you can get a lot done with hang cleans, back squats, bench press, chin ups, and an RDL. You can get a lot done like that. And you can do that. You can do some form of an explosive lift, a leg lift, an upper body lift, a pull, and an RDL 3 or 4 days. 3 or 4 days a week, you can do the same thing, and the Russian is long. 6 minutes. Looks like a lot. I've had guys go blind in that. Okay? So for some, that's general work capacity. For some, we're raising the core temperature and breaking a sweat. Okay? So we're going to do something along those lines every day. Static stretching, sticks and foam rollers, everybody likes that. OYOs on your own. So that was laid out there on the turf. They were doing that. And then when we walked out as a staff, they pop up, they're on the line, toes behind the line, they jog down and back, and then they line up. We even went so far as we started putting cones on, no question where you line up. Spread them out, there's a cone, we had those little bitty discs, you know, and so we even told them where to stand, that way you don't have guys too close and they're, you know, yip-yap. Okay? All right, and then, all right, so this would be a run before. It's got to be, you know, this would be a short run. 5 yards, 5 and 10 yards, okay? Simple stuff, all right? And even start with hands on the hips to get it right without the arm swing, without the arm motion, okay? Single, double, triple switches, short distances, and look, it's not conditioning. I had to put that there, all right? This is not conditioning, okay? And you can get it done, all right? And then this would be medium distances, okay? All right, Brett McFarland would break it. Brett McFarland, he was a Canadian. Some of the old guys in here would know who he is. He was the national hurdle coach in Canada, all right? And he says, you know, if you're going to run the hurdles, you got to learn to accelerate 5 yards first, you know? And then you got to learn to clear 1 hurdle, and then 2 hurdles, and then 3 hurdles. So I like short to long progressions, okay? This would be a long for Monday. This is a lot of work for Monday. So this right here is probably 285 yards of running if you did the math, okay? I think that's around 285 yards. All right, now, Monday's workout, all right? Now, barbell warm-up, kettlebell swings, all right? So the progression, we'd start with some hang cleans. Then once we were good with that, power cleans. And then for the good guys, we could go squat cleans. The guys that have great range flexibility and good strong guys. Press, push press, split jerks. Back squats, front squats. This was going to be a heavy, clean, and jerk day, light squats, and bench day. And bench is basic. It's bench or close grip bench. And this is a progression. And then you can do benches with a pause and benches with a contrast, you know, plyo push-ups or med ball pass or something like that. And then you're going to do a vertical pull, and then you're going to do some type of compound shoulder exercise with dumbbell presses, upright rows, etc. All right? Now, Tuesday's warm-up, dynamic warm-up, again, a 7-minute warm-up, and then some lunges and jogging and, you know, walking knee pulls over hurdles, you know, walking toe touches, scoops, you know, that type of stuff, and then you warm them up again. And I just have the work capacity. These are all tempos, whether they're intensive or extensive, it didn't matter. This is 1 set, 2 sets, 3 sets, 4, okay? So this would be a quarter gas or half gas or quarter gas or half gassers. People don't like gassers, but you know, a quarter gasser would just be 1 across and then 2 across, okay? Here's a fancy one. Quarter gasser, 3/4 gasser, half gasser. Quarter gasser, 3/4 gasser, half gasser. Or 40s, 80s, 40s, 80s. This is all just tempo work. This right here is actually a box. So you're going to run the straightaway, walk the end zone, run the straightaways, walk the end zones. Here's your boxes. So this is just all just basic work capacity stuff. There's so much stuff I could do. All right, Wednesday's warm-up. It's just like Monday's warm-up with different stuff. This stuff always remained the same. This is always something different right here. And then you're going to do a flexion, a rotation, and a plank for core work. All right? And then Wednesday's workout, all right, barbell warm-up, again, snatch grip, you know, so this was the general warm-up for the day, and then this right here would be the specific warm-up of the day. All right, kettlebell swings again, and not like light kettlebells, like 100-pound kettlebells, like, you know, like heavy kettlebells. Alico makes some great kettlebells too, and they're gigantic. They look like they're boat anchors. And then, so your snatch work, your unilateral leg work, your auxiliary bench work, clean grip pulls, clean pulls, clean grip deadlifts like the Chinese. I love watching those guys do those heavy. If you follow me on Instagram, if I see a good heavy clean grip deadlift, I'm putting it out there. Hex bar deadlifts. I love sumo deadlifts because you can go really heavy on it and the time under tension isn't long, so it doesn't beat the guys up. And we would go clean grip pulls up to 100% of their 1 RM for, like 4 sets of 3. And then we would do like 4 singles on sumo deads. So we'd go clean pulls, so I'd get my dynamic work, and then, we would go up, like do just 4 singles in sumo deads after that. I love that combination. Here's your, and there's so much work that you can do for hams, elbow work, etc. All right, now Thursday. All right, so if you looked at it high-low, Monday would be a shorter acceleration day because we're lifting. All right. Tuesday was a big tempo day because that's all we had to do. And then Wednesday was no running after Wednesday's workout. Thursday would be a longer acceleration day or max velo day. All right. And so the distance are going to be longer, and we would do some contrast with heavy sleds, followed by no weight, and then back to some heavy sleds. And we would go up to 80% of their body weight in heavy sleds. But I would start, let me back up. I would start with shorter distances on Thursday, just like I did on Monday, but progress to longer distances on Thursday. Okay, and then Thursday could also be a change of direction day. All right, so we would do a lateral warm-up, and then leans and switches. This is from Ryan Ojeda, who used to work at Parisi. If you can ever find, Ryan Ojeda is the head strength coach now at West Feliciana High School. He is one of the most knowledgeable people there is. The stuff that Ryan Ojeda was doing 10 years ago is more commonplace today, but he is ridiculous. But leans and switches, this is all like movement prep, single lateral. So this is kind of like a lateral kick slide, but it's just, he breaks it down to just going here and then reset and here, resetting. Same thing with single crossovers here and just crossover, pause again. He breaks it down really fundamental. And then we would go acceleration, deceleration drill, both single and double leg, acceleration, deceleration. Then resisted shuffles with chains or bands. Shuffle side plants, so you're going to shuffle, stick it, hold it, and then shuffle, stick it, hold it, and then resisted crossover run, and then it's all movement prep. Very basic, fundamental stuff. It's great. And then we would do ricochet drills where you shuffle, sprint, shuffle. This is a 5-yard drill. So you're going to sprint, side plant, shuffle, side plant, sprint. And there's a lot of different combinations that you can do. It's a 15-yard agility drill. They're very dynamic, very explosive. And then if you want to increase the volume, then you can do your classic agility, your 4-station agility drills. And there's just so much. All right, but I tried to keep it very basic and fundamental today. All right, Friday, similar. This right here, I've been doing this really since this part of the warm-up Vic did when he was in the 7th grade. All right, this part hasn't changed. Neck rotations, arm rotations, trunks twist, windmills. We did push-ups, sit-ups, and squats. But yeah, so Vic should be 6'5", but I made him squat so much when he was a kid. He didn't ever get to 6'5", so he's still got some issues with me being his coach. 90-90s, there's some FRC stuff here. And I had different focuses on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday based on what this part of the workout is, but you can see
the seated 90s, shin box get-ups. This is more glute stuff right here and hip stuff. All right, Friday's workout. All right, so the hang clean. Well, let me back up. Monday's workout, heavy cleans and jerks. And then the squats and bench was more dynamic. So today, the cleans are going to be very dynamic, light, moving it as fast as humanly possible. All right, and then bench and squat was heavy, okay? So, and it's basic. Back squat, any eccentrics and isometrics that you wanted to do. Same thing on bench, heavy bench, heavy floor presses, heavy board presses, or eccentrics or isometrics. Now, as far as back squat goes, to me, there's not many variations to the back squat. I don't know of any, except for eccentrics and isometrics and a front squat. There isn't a whole lot. To me, it's the foundation of combative sport strength training. But anyway, horizontal row, there's so many different horizontal rows. Back to, complex, shoulder exercise, abs, stuff like that. And then after the lift is another work capacity day, same stuff here. Here's something, I did a lot of it when I was younger and then got away up from it later on and then went back to it.